It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. My lucky day. Don't need a pot of gold.
Good morning, everybody. Today is September 16th, and I want to welcome you to episode 43 of Coffee and Cloud Native. My name is Adrian Goins. Every night, I and my army of bots scour the internet for news and content related to Kubernetes and Cloud Native, and every day you'll find me here to share the bits that I find interesting, and sometimes I even get to drink my coffee. This is a curated list of content. I go through around 200 submissions every night, and I select only a handful of them for the next day's show. I'm talking, so I can't drink. I'll set that back down. These are the tools, the products, the things that I would use, and I want to share them with you. And today's a little bit different. Today we get to talk about VMware. So not everything is a tool or a product or a solution that I would use, but we'll get to that in just a second. If you're watching now or in the future, please click the thumbs up button on the video so the YouTube algorithm shares it with other people. If you want to subscribe to the channel, that would be great. You'll get like notifications if you click the bell, but whatever, you don't have to. I'm here every day, and the place to be is in the chat. Let's jump over there real quick and say hello to everybody who's been joining us this morning. So we got some early arrivals. We got WifeBot, of course. Good morning, WifeBot. Trix is here. Frank is here. Good morning, Wojtek. Cześć. The chat is where people talk about stuff during the stream and respond to things I say and answer or ask questions. And then WifeBot tells me in another chat window, and then I can address them on the show. So if there's anything that we're talking about that you have an opinion on, that's the place to go and share it. Good morning, Ian and David and Sebastian. Buenos dias. Tim, hey. Wow, 2 days in a row. Thanks, man. It's nice to see you here. Okay. Chris must know if we're still talking about Khal Drogo. You are welcome to talk about Khal Drogo in the chat if you so desire. First of all, I did it again. First of all, we have no browser. Let's see. We want that browser window. So let's try this again. Yay! First of all, remember that Friday is Giveaway Friday. If we get 50 people watching the stream, somebody in the chat will win a copy of Brett Fisher's Kubernetes Mastery course. But this week is slightly more special because I will be doing 2 giveaways on Friday. Why will we be doing 2 giveaways? Because I am literally right now 3 people away from 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. Golf clap! Thank you all for believing in me. And I know we're going to hit that today or tomorrow or, well, if we haven't hit it by Friday, then I'm not doing 2 giveaways. But if we cross 2,000, which I'm sure we will, then I'll be doing a giveaway for that to somebody in the chat. And then if we also hit the 50 subscriber or 50 viewers, blah, 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 the normal thing, then we'll do a second giveaway. So come on Friday, win a copy of Kubernetes Mastery from Brett Fisher. And now we get to... Whoops. Oh, actually, you know what? Before we get to the VMware thing, let's talk about this. This is a late arrival. This literally was in Twitter when I woke up this morning, and I wanted to just bring it to your attention. I will put a link to it in the document. I will put a link to it in the video description after the show. This is a very, very long and mostly humorous blog post about a guy who discovered that the former Prime Minister of Australia had posted his boarding pass on Instagram when he was coming back from some trip, and determined that with nothing more than the information on the boarding pass, he was able to get his passport number, his itinerary, his home phone number, and probably could have gotten a bunch of other information. First of all, it's a nice story of how just don't put things online. Like, you have no idea how all of this stuff is linked. And the flaw here was actually in the Amadeus software that most airlines use for all of their booking and tracking and stuff like that. You don't know what information can lead to other information. And while you might think that a boarding pass number is innocuous, this shows you that it's not. So there's no need to share stuff like that, or if you do, put your thumb over anything that you think might link that document to you. He shows how he did it, and then he talks about responsible disclosure, explains how he was able to track down who he should share this with so that they could get it fixed, how most of the people that he talked to were like, I don't know what you're talking about, we're not smart enough to answer your questions. There's a pretty funny thing in here where he goes to the form that the Prime Minister has on, former Prime Minister has to contact him, and he shows that, that's not there, he shows that the form is just, it doesn't actually go anywhere, it returns a 403. So people go there and they like fill in their information and they're like, this is the thing that I want changed in the government. And nobody listens to that stuff. So don't even waste your time. It ends with him not getting arrested, which is cool because a lot of these things don't end that well. And it's a really nice read. So I wanted to share that with you guys because it just literally got posted overnight from Australia. Hello, Australia. And so yeah, we'll have that. This was the big news from yesterday. Tanzu is now, well, okay, when I say Tanzu, I mean Kubernetes, because if you've looked at VMware's product portfolio around Tanzu, you know that there's like 18 different SKUs that do all sorts of different things, and what you buy only does 35% of the things that you need it to do for Kubernetes, so you got to go buy something else. We're not going to get into all of that. We're just going to say Tanzu. And when I say Tanzu, I want you to hear Kubernetes. Tanzu is now available for vSphere 7 without purchasing VMware Cloud Foundation, VCF, this thing down here. When VMware announced Tanzu, everybody was really excited. Kubernetes in vSphere is a great idea, not just from a product standpoint of, inside of VMware, but from a usability standpoint. VMware is everywhere, and having access to Kubernetes functionality directly within a product that you already have deployed, that already has access to all of your infrastructure, is just smart. But they did some things. Well, they did some things. One, they made most of it available within a very, very expensive product called VMware Cloud Foundation. VMware's idea was everybody wants Kubernetes, let's give them Kubernetes, let's also charge a crap ton of money for it, and then we'll just make a crap ton of money. We'll come back to that. They also did some stuff like Tanzu Mission Control, which is the part of it that looks a lot like Rancher, is a SaaS solution. Not sure why, but if you want to use Tanzu Mission Control to manage your Kubernetes stuff, you have to pay VMware, and it's a SaaS. So if you want to not pay them anymore, you don't get to use it anymore. Not sure I would have made the same decision, but whatever, that's what they did. This article says that now you don't have to buy VCF. You can just get Kubernetes in vSphere 7, which is great. But I want to take a moment to talk about how to decipher marketing mumblespeak in a post. When a company follows an announcement with a change in direction, it's because their previous model failed to attract the numbers that they needed. If everybody was beating a path to VMware's door to buy VCF at the exorbitant price that it's being sold for, they wouldn't suddenly release it for free. So that's point number one. Point number two, don't believe a company's own assessment of their product. This post talks about Project Pacific, a groundbreaking rethinking of vSphere. Well, groundbreaking is subjective. You might think it's groundbreaking, but you really need independent, non-compensated third parties to make those kinds of assessments. The rest of this article has more things like that. For example, they talk about how vSphere with Tanzu is the fastest way to get started with Kubernetes. You can get Kubernetes infrastructure in an hour. An hour! That's the fastest way to get started with Kubernetes. Why? Because VMware said so. Well, okay, let's think about that. If I run K3s, I can get Kubernetes in less than a minute. If I run RKE, I can get Kubernetes in less than 10 minutes. If I run EKS, I can get Kubernetes in less than 25 minutes. And even if I run OpenShift, I can get Kubernetes in less than 40 minutes. VMware's own Pivotal, blah, 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 will do it in between 40 minutes and an hour. So is this really the fastest way to get Kubernetes? I don't think so. It continues to pick on things like, so if you run vSphere with Tanzu, you can modernize, I can't highlight this because it's an image, but you can modernize the 70 million plus workloads that are running on vSphere. This is a fallacy associated with this is a fallacy of the law of association. The law of association says thing like this exists, thing like this exists next to it, thing A is cool, therefore thing B is also cool. If you put, so remember, Tanzu is just Kubernetes. If you have workloads running on vSphere and you put Kubernetes next to it, are those workloads automatically modernized? Or do you have a crap ton of work to do? The end. You have a crap ton of work to do. Running Tanzu, remember, I'm not bitching about Tanzu here. I'm not bitching about Kubernetes. I'm not bitching about VMware making this available. I'm bitching about this article trying to get you excited about something that you already could do, that you can do for less money, that you can do a lot faster. And if you remember when I talked about Microsoft and Open Service Mesh, I said that Microsoft made an announcement and everybody was like, woo, Microsoft, yay, without engaging in critical thinking to analyze if what they were announcing actually had any value. And that's the last thing about this announcement. First of all, great. Tanzu on vSphere, super awesome, unless you already bought VCF. If you already spent tons of money on VCF, probably VMware will give you your money back. I hope. I'm not sure. You can certainly ask. For the rest of you, they say here that customer, where is it? So based on overwhelming customer demand, we've released it as part of vSphere. The overwhelming customer demand is that nobody paid for it. Kubernetes is free. Kubernetes is readily available. You can run Kubernetes inside of VMware's infrastructure without paying them for anything. So just be aware that this kind of stuff exists to sway you, and maybe it shouldn't. Let's move on. It's funny, VMware actually shows up later with the original rant from yesterday. You know, it's pretty funny when VMware makes Red Hat look good, for me. Like, that says a lot. I see the chat's going crazy. Okay, I'll go back and read that afterwards. Next up, we have Kubespray. Kubespray 2.14.0 was released 8 days ago, but it was supposed to be on yesterday. I started out with CF Engine, and then I moved to Puppet. I avoided Chef at all costs, and I ended up on Ansible. Trix, who's in the chat, had me look at Salt. Ooh, Salt is good. Salt reminds me a lot of CF Engine. Salt has this solidity about it that it's like you do things and it's just like, blam, the thing was done. Whereas Ansible's still a little bit squishy. And Salt reminded me a lot of CF Engine, and I think that if I was starting today, I would probably use Salt. Certainly if Salt had the automated agent operation that Puppet has, then I would switch. But I didn't switch because it's centralized. And the main reason that I went from Puppet to Ansible is because I'm no longer an organization, I'm just me. And I liked that I didn't have to have this centralized infrastructure to do stuff. I could just have my laptop, and my laptop worked just great. So I'm still on Ansible. Trix and I have conversations about Salt. Maybe he'll convince me. Some people use Ansible for Kubernetes. They use Kubespray to deploy it, and that's fine. I don't use it for lots of reasons. I'm not going to go into that. But they did just release 2.14.0. It has a lot of great features that they've added to it. Some new MetalLB enhancements. You can do more stuff with Cryo. You can deploy Cilium and deploy that alongside another CNI. So if you are looking at Kubespray, or if you already are using Kubespray, there's a lot of great stuff. If you want to do stuff with Kubernetes and Ansible, and you don't want to stand up entire infrastructures, you already have a way to get your Kubernetes up and running, there are actually modules built into Ansible that allow you to orchestrate workloads directly in Kubernetes. So you could bootstrap a cluster with, well, any of the other stuff, and then you can continue with using Ansible to control not just Kubernetes. You can also control Docker directly. You can control Podman stuff. And this article, which is actually from Red Hat, don't be confused by the opensource.com. Everything on this website is from Red Hat, and it exists to get you to use Red Hat stuff. But they try to stay a little bit neutral. Anyway, it's a fine article. Yes, so this covers several of the commands that are available within Ansible for controlling Kubernetes. And what I like is they give you the Kubernetes command, so kubectl create namespace, and then they show you how to do the same task using Ansible. That's a really nice way to make an association in your brain, and associations are how we retain information. Here's another site that exists as a vendor-neutral education portal for Kubernetes. But notice at the top, you can see it's KubeAcademy from VMware. When this first came out, I looked at it, and this isn't going to be like the first rant, I promise. When this first came out, I looked at it, and I've never put it on the show because most of the content in here I felt was not worth talking about. They have things like Kubernetes 101, 2 lessons, 14 minutes. How much 101 level content do you really think you can get in 14 minutes? They have another one down here, hands-on with Kubernetes and containers. 3 lessons, 1 minute, 33 seconds. And this is what they started with. However, they have now introduced longer running content. They've got some stuff in here that's over an hour. So yeah, building images, 8 lessons, an hour. Building images in an hour, you'll probably get a lot of good information out of that. Hands-on with kube control, 5 lessons, 1 minute and 24 seconds. Yeah. So education's a big part of what I do on this show. I believe that education is the key to your success. The more that you know, the more that you can do, and the more that you can do, the more valuable you are. But more important, the more you can do, the more freer, the less likely you are to ever get stuck. Learning is not just about knowledge, it's about learning how to learn. And not all education is created equal. When you don't know something, it's overwhelming, the volume of information that's out there. There are so many places that claim to give you everything you need to know about how to get started with Kubernetes and so on and so forth. When you look at a solution, remember that time is the most valuable resource that you have. And you want a multiple of return on your investment in anything. So if you invest an hour, you need to get multiples back on whatever it is that you've learned. That's why on this show, I really try to make everything useful to you every single day. If I analyze this from a marketing perspective, if I put my marketing hat on, and remember that I'm an engineer, but I work in marketing. I understand the psychology of why people buy things. If I look at this from a marketing perspective, remember that this is a portal that is built by VMware. They make a big deal about how it's vendor neutral, but they don't really give you the information that you need to solve all of your problems. I can forgive that from a smaller organization that just maybe doesn't have the money, or they're trying to do the best that they can, but VMware has the money to do this right. So if it's not right, and they have the money to do it right, what does that mean? Is it because they're incompetent, or is it because they made a decision to not give you all of the information? You get this for free in exchange for your email address, so it's not totally free. I speculate that they will follow up with non-vendor neutral marketing collateral that answers the remaining questions that you have in a way that steers you towards VMware's product line. Because remember, VMware is they're not altruistic. They're not here to just give stuff away for free. They're here to get you to buy their stuff. When you find a platform like this, use it for what it makes available to you. Use it for the information that it has, and recognize that it's not going to be the be-all and the end-all. Just treat it like another book on the shelf, and be wary of what comes after. Ooh. We'll follow that with this cool page, which has a bunch of free books on Kubernetes. Well, free-ish. Again, you got to give up an email address, but we've got Kubernetes up and running, Kubernetes patterns, Kubernetes operators, designing distributed systems. That's an amazing book. Monolith to microservices, and the Knative cookbook. I will have this in the show notes as well. Books are great because they're yours, and you can refer back to them. You can read the index, you can read the table of contents, you can determine if it's good, you can throw it in the trash. Honestly, after reading any one of these books, you'll know way more than you would from the KubeAcademy page on the previous page. But not everyone learns from books. So, learn from any place that doesn't have a vested interest in guiding you towards their products. Or if they want you to use their products, make sure that those products are free and open source, because, right? Then you know that they're steering you towards something that they believe will actually help you, not towards something that they believe will actually make them a bunch of money. Which, there's nothing wrong with making money. It's a fight. You are not the product. And you need to make sure that you are doing everything every single day to make the best of your world, to move you forward in life, to give you the stability and the protection and the financial security and all of those things without becoming a cog in the machine of somebody else's marketing plan. Wow, I'm like all over the place today. Let's let's just continue. I don't know why these things matter so much to me. Like in my notes, I'm like, oh, it made me really mad, but it doesn't really make me mad. Like I get what they're doing. Wifebot was making a joke that I'm like Tron, like I fight for the users. I do. I want you guys as individuals, guys, girls, people. I'm sorry if I offended anybody with that statement. I want all of you to be successful. And I know that companies exist for their own benefits. Right, so Azure, I guess they had pod security policies in preview, and if you're using that after October 15th, you're screwed. Because they're like, pod security policies? Who needs those? Instead, we'll give you Azure policy for AKS. Yay! We promise it won't lock you into our platform. If you're using pod security policies on AKS, just know that in a little while, that's not going to work for you. A happy story now. Kong. We had Kong with Kuma on the show in episode 41. What was that? 2 days ago. I don't know a lot about Kong, but they've been coming up more and more. And most API gateways, I know Kong is an API gateway. What I didn't realize is that while most API gateways are gateway first and ingress second, I found this last night, which is it's their Kubernetes ingress controller. And it appears to be ingress first. And then, here's an ingress, which is a solution that you know and you already know how to use in Kubernetes. And oh yeah, you can extend it to be an API gateway. That's pretty cool. It has fantastic documentation. It has great guides for getting started. So if you are looking for API gateway, ingress, something else besides just the stock ingress controllers, if you consider this, Kong is doing a thing, since we're already talking about marketing today, they're doing a thing that I prefer, which is, here's something that we built. We think it will help you. We hope you like it. They're very quiet. Compared to VMware, who's like, we built the most awesome thing ever, you have to use it, because... The quiet voice. The quiet voice is the one I want to listen to. How many of you think VMware actually sounds like that? Some of you know I met Joe Beta. Joe Beta, if you're watching the show, hi. That's all we're going to say about that. HAProxy has a webinar. We had them on the show a little while ago in episode 32, where they had a book on getting started with the HAProxy Ingress controller that started some drama. They're back with a webinar on how to get started with the HAProxy Ingress controller. I was a little sad that the book lacked depth, and they say that this is a beginner's workshop. So I'm not sure how beginnery it's going to be. I don't know if I'm going to be able to join it, but I thought about joining it and asking non-beginner questions to try and push the limits of what HAProxy is able to do. I know HAProxy is a fantastic load balancer. I use it. I've used it for years. And I want them to, like I'm anybody at all, I want to see their ingress controller be as successful as their load balancer. And I feel like they're a little bit timid right now. But I'm sure that it can do lots of great things. So I thought about joining the webinar and just being like, okay, so with the ingress controller, how do I do this complex thing that I could do with the load balancer? But regardless, if you're interested in knowing more about HAProxy, and this is HAProxy, the company's ingress controller for Kubernetes, then they're having a webinar. Yay! All this talk of ingress controllers is confusing to people who may be new in their Kubernetes journey. This is not a new article. This is from July, written by Yitai Huang. This was reposted by Traffic the other day. Hi, Traffic. They watch the show. And it gives a quick overview of a number of different ingress controllers, what they're built on, why one might be not better than the other, but using a different technology that gives you access to different functionality and stuff. Including, so it's just a quick overview, like a paragraph on each of them. It's a good high-level overview of what does what and where. It ends with his question of how do you make a choice? That's a good question. You make a choice. There's not an exciting answer. You make a choice by just testing it and picking the thing that works for you. Like, don't think that when you have 50 solutions available that any one of them is the right one and the other 49 are wrong. So put one in place, test it, look at the functionality, say, yeah, I might use that in the future, or that's really complicated and the time I have to spend to get it up and running today isn't worth the benefit that I'll get from it. Think about my service mesh conversation from the other day where, like, I really want a service mesh, but I don't, like, even playing with Kuma, I don't need a service mesh or like Kuma enough to switch to Kong. I'm using Glue. I was using the K8s Ingress controller. I use Traffic over here. I use whatever's available, but most important in that is for me, I'm not afraid to switch. So if I'm using something that no longer satisfies my needs, I'll just try something else, and then I'll switch out to something else. And that's the power of open source type solutions. We will end today, before we get to the tool of the day, with this lovely chart that came up yesterday. Many of us understand security, but many do not. And this is a chart that shows, with some caveating here, how long it will take to brute force your password based on certain criteria. And this is if they have the hash and they're just going to try every single thing, or even the hash and the salt. They're just going to try every single thing to brute force it. Certain platforms, like for example, if you use a 12-digit code on your iPhone, iPhone has limitations on how much time has to pass between password attempts if you don't have the thing that wipes your phone after 10 attempts. So this doesn't necessarily apply everywhere. This is if they have the hash and they have the equipment, how long does it take to brute force it? And some of these numbers are absolutely terrifying. And if you think that this is stuff that's only available to state-level actors, well, it's not. Here's a company that for $32,000, you can get your own, what does that thing have? 10 GPUs in there and a whole ton of RAM to do, brute forcing yourself. And in fact, you can get hash cracking as a service. These guys bought Loft. Who remembers Loft from the early 2000s? Loft Heavy Industries. Hi, Loft. Nice to see you're still out there. So yeah, you can get hash cracking as a service. And in environments where the benefit of having those passwords is financial and significant, it's nothing for organized crime entities to own or rent these types of things and get busy owning your stuff. Hey, Trix remembers Loft. Do you remember Cult of the Dead Cow? I bet you do. I can't say the name of their product. It was a Windows product. CDC. Those were the days. Tool of the day. Tool of the day. It's the death metal jingle. Kube-rbac-proxy. This is another one that almost didn't make it on the show. So creators, when you're creating stuff, it's really helpful if you include a why section about why you made a thing. Because this isn't for me. This is just in general. Somebody looks at or evaluates something from your README, and they need to make a decision about, okay, is this something that's useful? And a really good way to help them make that decision is to explain how you arrived at the need for this thing to exist. This is particularly important when the need isn't because I needed to make a bunch of money. You had a problem, you created a tool, you solved the problem, you want to share that tool with other people, help define the problem. And it's this why section that led me to be like, oh, okay, this is actually super cool. This is designed to run as a sidecar proxy. and proxy to something else, the other container, running on localhost. It performs authorization against the Kubernetes API for the requester. So the argument was that just because something has network access to a thing doesn't necessarily mean that it should be allowed to talk to the thing. The guy created it so that he could protect Prometheus endpoints and make sure that the thing that was actually making the request was authorized to talk to it. Not just the door was open, but had permission to come into the door. I can see this as being extremely useful for adding an extra layer of security to workloads running inside of the cluster. And it does some really cool things. It explains in his examples the difference between a non-resource URL and a resource URL, and he has examples for that, whether you're protecting an endpoint that's a URL endpoint, or whether you're protecting a Kubernetes resource like a service. And this is cool. It'll do OIDC authentication even when the cluster's not configured to do OIDC. So he says here, if you can't, for whatever reason, make your cluster talk to an OIDC endpoint, that's cool. You can still make your service require authentication against an OIDC endpoint in addition to authorization within Kubernetes role-based access control. It's pretty sweet, right? Hey, that's it. It's 9:01. Time for the show to end. Coffee and Cloud Native, 33 minutes with Adrian Goins. If you liked what you saw today, give the video a thumbs up. If you're new to the show, I'm not usually this ranty, but just when VMware marches out, I want to, it's like the emperor has no clothes, right? So anyway, I hope you liked the video today. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I'm here every weekday to talk about usually technology and tools and sometimes other things. There's always something to talk about. All of the links to everything I talked about today will be up in the video description in about an hour. And if you follow me on Twitter, you'll get a notification when that happens. If you have something that you would like for me to consider for the show, please hit me up and let me know. My contact details are in the video description. Yeah, they're in the video description. Yeah, the end. Or you can tweet with, not the end. You can tweet with the CNCN hashtag and I will also pick it up. If I mentioned a tool that you use, please tell me in the comments or come join the chat in a future show and tell us that you use it. I love to hear about people's experiences with these things. I just love to talk to you guys. Remember that point. The fact that I love to talk to you guys because I'm working on something that will allow us to interact better than what we're able to do with YouTube. Foreshadowing. I'll be here every weekday as long as there's something to talk about. There's always something to talk about. Remember, we have Giveaway Friday on Friday, and then I'll be taking 2 weeks off to work on some other stuff, and then I'll be back again after whatever that is. So come back. We got 2 more days. We got a giveaway, and then we'll be back in the future. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a great day. Keep learning. Protect yourself. What was it, Trix? Protect your port? Something. Always, always, always invest in yourself first, and you will be successful. So thanks a lot. I'll see you in the next show.